really the only question marks now for the starting 11 in particular are the striker, but we have three like 2A, 2B options, so they can kind of rotate, and a second center back. That was from my video 2 days ago, and I might as well have been a psychic because Toronto FC have now immediately post that upload gone out and signed Norwegian center back Sigurd Rosted. Rosted is a 28-year-old, so in his prime, 6'2" center back who currently plays for Brondby in the Danish top flight. He has previously played for Ghent in the Belgian top division and Sarpsborg in the Norwegian top flight, and has Europa and brief Champions League experience from his time with both Ghent and Brondby. On top of that, he has 5 caps for the Norwegian national team since 2018, scoring 1 goal in a friendly against Albania off of a corner. So we wanted experienced defenders of experience playing at high levels, particularly in Europe. We got one right here with Rosted. Now another signing for TFC, kind of like Petretta, that's the guy who nothing particularly jumps out as this guy is 100% going to be a massive success in Major League Soccer, but again, one of those guys who experience in European leagues, experience having played in European competition from playing on high-end teams in some of these European leagues. This is a guy that everything about him has the makings of a very solid defender in Major League Soccer. And pair him with Hedges, all of a sudden now that's 2 center backs who are, on paper at least, better than anything we had last season on the back end. So massive reparations on the back end completed, and we keep around Shane O'Neill and Lucas McNaughton. Those guys in backup roles I think are going to provide very useful depth for Toronto FC this season, as it seems like center back's the only position that we have any semblance of depth in, maybe besides like left wing, because Jaden Nelson's kind of useful. So we needed to completely retool the back half of the field, and we have completely retooled the back half of the field. Of the 5 starting back end players, defense plus goaltender, we had last season, the only one from last season that's still a starter for Toronto FC is Richie Larea. We now have added Hedges, Rosted, Petretta, and Sean Johnston at net. So just already, that's a massive turnaround on the back end. Depth on the fullbacks especially still a bit of a question, but almost every single need in the starting 11 that Toronto needed filled has been filled. And in fact, now we basically have our fully filled out starting 11. I would not be surprised if this is the starting 11 we roll into the season with. And you can see that lineup here. Pretty much every position has a clear number 1 guy, obviously Insigne, Bernardeschi on the wings, Kay, Azorio, Bradley in the midfield. As I mentioned before, Petretta, Hedges, Rosted, Larea on the back, and then Sean Johnson in net. The only question mark right now for Toronto FC of who's going to start is at the striker role. We have Jimenez, Akinola, and Diamande are all not what I'd consider starting caliber players in MLS, but all like solid number 2 options. So as I said before, we're probably going to rotate between those 3 guys. Interesting to note is we do still have a designated player spot available. Now, for all indications, it looks like Toronto FC is not going to fill that designated player spot just yet. Now, when the summer comes around, the summer window comes around, there's 2 questions for Toronto FC. One, do we get another designated player? It's very likely that we are still going to get another designated player, and likely a designated player striker at that, but it might not happen until the summer, especially when European players' contracts are over, so then we could get a guy on a free, and even a higher caliber guy on a free than we could get right now. The other question for the summer is Richie Larea, whose loan from Nottingham Forest ends in the summer. So with the Larea situation, either we have to buy him back from Nottingham Forest, or he gets sent back to Nottingham Forest, and that likely is going to depend on how Nottingham Forest finishes the Premier League season. If they end up getting relegated back down to the Championship, I think it's highly likely that they bring Larea back into the fold, because I feel like he is a very useful player at the Championship level. He's a guy who definitely could be playing at the Championship level right now. I don't quite think he's at the level required for the Premier League though, so if they stay in the Premier League, I could see very easily them selling him back to Toronto FC, possibly at a cheaper price than if they get relegated to the Championship, because if they get relegated to the Championship, all of a sudden he becomes a useful piece for them. So the price to get him back is going to go up. As things stand, Nottingham Forest is currently 13th in the Premier League, 4 points up on the relegation zone, so that's a little bit of a storyline to keep a watch on as the MLS season starts, so the Premier League season comes to a close, because how that goes for Nottingham Forest may very well determine whether or not we hold on to Richie Larea or if we have to replace him in the summer window. But for now, we can celebrate in the fact that we have acquired Sigurd Rosted. Honestly, this Hedges Rosted back line is probably the most confidence I've had in a Toronto FC back line going into a season since 2017 when we had Mavinga and Drew Moore, who was just like right still in it in his career. And honestly, there's a lot of similarities between those two back ends. We had Moore was like Hedges, a very experienced American center back from MLS, veteran presence who had years and years and years of experience in MLS and had at one point been touted as one of the better defenders in Major League Soccer. And Mavinga is like Rosted, a guy in his first season from TFC, coming over from Europe, had bounced around in Europe a little bit, had some Europa League experience. Two very similar players, honestly. So if that 2017 back end is anything to go by, which was the greatest defense Toronto FC has ever had, this is like the second incarnation of that almost. It's actually funny how similar this pairing is to Moore and Mavinga back in 2017. So that is it for this video. As always, if you'd like to hit like, if you want to see more of my stuff, hit subscribe. Follow my Twitter, link is down below in the description, and I will see you next time.